Hello, everybody. Welcome to this day's live stream. And today, I'm joined by Noseman. I'm Jonas. Hi. And it's an exciting day because there has been a release today. So update your Maxon app, download the new version of Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D 2026.3 is out now. And we have a couple of cool features in there that we are going to show you. So what do we have, Noseman?
Hello, everyone. How are you? You saw potentially the announcement here. And let me share my screen. And I think we're going to go this way first, and then we're going to go full screen to show more stuff. Now, I have a Stegosaurus here, which is the favorite dinosaur of my very good friend, Gunther Nicodem. And he kindly provided this model for today's presentation. I just want to thank him because his work is stellar and he always provides us with great material. And later on, I'm going to post some stuff where you can find my friend Gunther. So I am going to show you today one thing, which is the new UV editor. So first of all, welcome everyone. I usually see you on Thursdays, but today it's a Wednesday. A bit finds me a bit off balance. And let's maximize the screen. And I'm going to give you sort of an overview of what to expect. And you can go to your layout, UV edit. And the first thing you will see here, and let me go to a new document just to make sure that there are no distractions. This is a totally new viewport UV editor, which is based on the same technology as the viewport. Now, as many of you may already know, the old UV editor was specifically tailored for work with body paint. And the problem with that was it had too many dependencies on body paint. This one here is a totally new UV editor. In theory, it can use most, if not all, of the standard Cinema 4D modeling tools, and is a new platform upon which a totally new generation of tools can be built. And it works in very similar ways as the previous one. So we kept the workflow the same. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try over the next 25 minutes to do some real life unwrapping. I would like Jonas to keep an eye on the chat. And if there are any questions that I could show something, I would be very happy to do that. Now, what I've done here, I'm going to show you, first of all, what the final result. So this is what I did. It took me from scratch. So from this version here that doesn't have UVs, it took me to get to this point, including, researching the best way to do stuff and all that, about 15, 20 minutes. And I'm going to try and go as much as possible into the details. The number one thing is that we have changed the way the cuts or the seams work, and that is a very important part of your workflow. Now, mind you, over the next weeks and the next couple of months, we are going to start releasing a lot of very specific tutorials about the new process. Anyway, what I'm going to do here is just go and make sure that I clean. I don't want the safe frames here in my 3D viewport, just so I can have a clean view of my dino. So I'll leave the HUD on. Good. And working with models, the first thing you may do is just click any of these buttons here. Now, hovering over them, these are the buttons you already know, and the gear icon, as you know, allows you to go and select the settings. So this is the automatic UV packed algorithm. I just clicked on that, and it creates a UV and does the automatic packing. Nothing much has changed here. It's just a one-click solution if you want to do 3D painting. So you want to use this in Substance and so forth. So it's as easy as that. Then you can keep moving on. But if you want to have your own specific UVs, then let's see a few of the things. And then I'm going to move to this file, because at least here I've got selections ready. I don't want to bog you down with all the selections. So this one is the Unwrap and Relax. This one here is the UV projection, what was called the view in the previous version. So gear icon, view is frontal, and then we have all the others. Let me just go here and just apply this. So we have our frontal. And let's go and do some very quick selections. By the way, and I think this is it's as important as the UV editor. In order to make the transition from the old UV editor to the new one, an enormous amount of optimizations and bug fixes have been made to modeling. For example, if you have a loop selection, let's say you have a loop selection here, and you have a loop selection here, okay? If I want to deselect the inner loop from this here, and it's because the reason I'm showing this, it's an example of how a very small tweak can improve your life. If I go loop selection and say stop at selections, in the past, the selection itself wasn't allowing any selection to happen. But now what happens is if you press Control, you can deselect only the inner part. This would have been at least 3 more clicks. But these little optimizations, so many of these, too many to mention, are going to improve your workflow vastly. That is a promise. It has improved my workflow equally as much. So I did 2 clicks, I did 3 clicks, and I got to this result here. Now, seams. This is the second the second very important thing. Now we have a dedicated seams workflow. While from a functionality point of view, it's as if you have edges and you click and it does the seams. The good thing is that the seam, if I right click here, I can say mark as seam. And I can go and remove my selection. So I can go here and say, all right, no more selection. The seam is a very specialized edge selection tag with similar functions as the ones that any of the store selection tags has. The great thing is it doesn't matter what selection you have currently, because now a seam is a seam. And it allows you, it adds one more element you need to be aware of, but at least it keeps the seam workflow as a separate thing. You will never have, again, problems with proximity with UV polygons that weld themselves and so forth. In the past, it was proximity that defined where a seam would be. In the new UV editor, it's an explicit seam. So that, in my view, is one of the biggest improvements. So now what I can do here is I can just go and say, you know, I'm going to go ABF because that's the one that's good for these organic things. And I just press apply, and it's going to do its little thing. And now I have 2 halves broken up, and somewhere here I have a mouth. If I want to, there are ways here to say, you know, let me just reset and unwrap. So I was clicking. So here it will, you know, try to sort of put them in a different position. But you can also go down here, and the way this little toolbar is arranged is you generally go, you know, from this group to this group to this group to this group. So there is a left to right sort of workflow. But in any case, the UV packing has changed as well. It has settings for the resolution, the textile density, and all that kind of stuff. Geometric still is the best way to pack stuff, and if you apply this, it will do its thinking and there you go, a very neat thing. Now, let me show you. I'm going to jump around and show you things that excite me. The Coordinate Manager, which has a minor little bug, but no one's going to be bogged down with it. If you select it, you get these weird numbers. Like, what's going on? The bug, which you need to be aware of, it's going to be fixed very soon, is that these numbers are just 10 times the actual number. So instead of 400, this is 40%, this is 97%. Just think of these as divided by 10. But they represent the percentage the island is, the bounding box of the island holds within your tile. And in my view, that is absolutely fantastic, because if you want to make it fit from top to bottom, for example, I want this, let's say, to occupy a quarter of the length and the full height. You would go here and say 25 times 10 because of the bug, and 100 times 10 because of the bug. There you go. This is exactly, and if you go and put it here, 0.5, and if I go here and put it at I think it's 75 or what is that? Will be 50%, 0.75. It will occupy exactly the last quarter of your tile. So the fact that the Coordinate Manager in UV Space now has absolute values, in my view, is one of the best improvements. I'm going to say that about every tool, so forgive me. All the tools are the most exciting of all, but it does allow you to do these very precise placements. Okay, so another thing that has been vastly improved. Let's assume that I want to go and weld these two things, these two parts along the back. Let's go and do some simple stuff first. UL, let's go here and let's go. Oh, I have polygons. I don't want. Oh, watch this. Sorry, this I'm very proud of, because yeah, I kind of suggested it. When you have a loop selection, even when you're modeling, it doesn't matter if this loop selection is in UV space or if it's in 3D space. If you wanted to remove this selection, you had in the past to go to your move tool and click outside. Now, even if you have the loop selection, when you click outside the geometry, it removes this. Now, this may not sound like a big deal, but if you're doing 1,000 clicks to do a whole project during a day, minimizing those clicks, I have the loop tool. I want to save 2 clicks. Instead of doing 1, 2, and then UL again, now I just do 1 click. I've cut my click rate down to 1/3. People that do these kind of things, you will appreciate all these little improvements. There are too many to mention, but the ones I'm excited about, I'm going to talk about here. So let me jump around a bit. Let me show you how you go and you align a UV island now. So I'm going to go to my move tool. I don't need to select anything. You can go here where it says align UV island. When you hover over it, it will highlight the island. Let me go here. I want to align this down this edge. You do nothing. You just click on this and it's aligned. So even aligning UV islands now has become there's a shorter path to do that. And that is absolutely amazing. So where were we? Let's go over here and say, I want to select this edge here, and let's go down the belly. I'm going to select this one, control click to select all this. All right, and you can see we've selected these 2 sides. Now what I want to do is I want to weld these edges, and I want to weld them in a way where I want this island to come over here. Right, and for this to happen, you need to make sure sometimes if you are in the 3D context, the tools are not available. Just make sure that you click up in the bar to tell Cinema 4D that I'm here now. And look at the little weld thing here. Okay, now watch this. I'm hovering over and you're getting these arrows. Look at the arrows. They're pointing, they're saying that, well, you're hovering over something which is going to move to the other side. And the settings say transform islands, which is pretty cool because I can do this and it transformed the whole island on the other side. And let's go and straighten that out. And now let's go to this island over here. Let's go to polygon mode. Oh, let me go back to my edge selection. And with this edge selection selected and vertical, I'm going to right click and add my pins, the typical pin workflow. Now I'm going to double click on my island and I'm going to unwrap this one more time. And you can see that the workflow has become much more streamlined. Of course, you get the overlaps here because these are two separate islands. For anyone that does dinosaurs, as far as I've realized, is that usually the head, because it's a hero asset, they usually cut it out and they use a higher textile density to texture it and so forth. But in any case, another thing, let me start showing other things here. Look at this little button. If you unselect it, it temporarily releases the pins from holding your model. And it's great because now I can move this around and then I can activate them. You do not have to go and remove your pins and add your pins and all that. Again, a huge time saver. This one here is, as you can read on the bottom left, allows you to sync selections from one to the other. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you do. So that's what you can go and you can do. Let's go now to other funny stuff, nice stuff, funny stuff, great stuff. Click on the little brush and we can smear, we can go and we can smooth, we can relax. Look at that. And we can use all the various settings, the strength and the size and whatnot. So you can go very locally and you can see that we're not touching the pins. Right? So if you want to, you just do this, you move the pins and then you activate them again. So suddenly you have the option to just slowly move around your model and start doing the stuff you want with much more accuracy. So let's right click and clear UV pins. Another thing I really enjoy now is that if you right click here, you do get the majority of your selection tools, and that depending on the context, if you're an edge or polygon selection, you will get a different subset of tools here, if you're points and so forth. So again, the workflow is becoming a very streamlined. Do we have any questions, or is everyone just mesmerized?
So yeah, I'm answering a couple of questions in the background.
Oh, fantastic!
Most of them are not related to the workflow.
Okay. Excellent. Now, what other good stuff do we have? Of course, you can use right clicks, or you can go and you can pin the points from here and so forth. So the most important tools are set here. Okay, let's do something else, which is, let's say I want to cut these UVs or some of these UVs. So let me go control click here and command control and just let's go and remove these. All right. If you click on the little thing now, it just opens it. And that's it. It removes the seam. That's a very important part. It removes these edges from a seam because, again, it's not a proximity anymore. It's the seam workflow that tells the polygons to be welded or not. And you can choose how much that gap size is going to be, depending on what you're doing. So again, splitting up UV polygons is extremely, extremely simple. So I need to open up my cheat sheet because the problem with all this is I'm getting a bit too excited about this. And instead of focusing on showing you what I've planned, I get excited. Oh, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you that. Okay. Let me see what else do. Okay. So there's a new set of dedicated tools, the seam selection tool. And this allows you to avoid the step where you would go first do your selections, then right click and say mark as seam. So doing seams is something you can actually you can draw seams. You can use your shift modifier to do loop selections. Oh, I'm going to go here and I'm going to, cut around this. Or let's find where the head is. Let's go do this here. There you go. I'm going to go. There we go. Press shift and add these back to being seams. or I can just press Shift and do this. And you can see that the seam selection tool also has a set of um, controls very similar to the loop selection and the well-known tools, the ring selection, the loop selection, and all that. The path selection, actually, I should say, the path selection. Now, of course, in case you didn't know it, my favorite selection tool, because selection is a big part of UVs, is the Phong break selection, because it will find any polygons that are of a certain angle. And in this particular case, you can use it to create your selections and then convert them to seams. Talking about seams, let me show you another little thing that was added and makes things so so easy to work with. Let's assume that I want to isolate these fins. Oh, sorry, Gunter, I don't remember what these are called. Okay, I'm going to find out later. So I'm going to go here in my 3D viewport. Let's go here in the 3D viewport, and let me do some. Actually, let me see. I'm going to do a selection here. I'm going to go to the other side, do a selection here. What I'm going to try and do here, I can actually, this is a perfect case for the Phong break selection. There we go. I'm going to select this, and I'm using Shift to add. Of course, I can expand this a bit and go and add more elements to this. There we go. And let's say I selected all this with using whatever means. And if you want to check if something is properly selected, I like to very quickly go and do the hide unselected. And if anything is missing from this, that means I haven't done the proper selection. Then let's go show all. Now watch this. Here I have a polygon selection, right? Even if it's a polygon selection, if I right click and say mark as seam, it will mark the open end of the selection as a seam. You don't need to go and select edges to select seams. So you can just go and select all these, oh my Lord, what did I call these things? I'm going to go, the plates. Oh my Lord. So these are called plates. I can go and select all the plates in one go, and then just with one click, go and create seams for them, which means that if I do this now, the polygons are going to detach based on the seam selection. There's my little plate. So that's another huge time saver. I'm looking at the time. I have just a few minutes. All right, let me do something else quickly, because you're going to love this. Remember when I used the well tool? Let's do something. What can we do? Let's pack this. All right, this is I've connected it, and then I've got the legs and all that. All right, let's go and weld these two. So I'm going to go and select this and this and weld it. Right, it shows me where it's going. If you press Shift or Control, there you go. Look at the arrow. It meets in the middle. You can actually make the weld happen in the midpoint. So you can go to, you can see the arrows are pointing this way. You can go from, which now it's a bit hard because they're overlapping. That's because I've done bad UVs. And by using the control, you can make them meet in the middle. So this is another huge advancement to the weld tool. Okay, reading my cheat sheet.
In the meantime, I'm going to add some dinosaur knowledge here, because Günther is in the chat. Hey, Günther. Here, he said, the plates are bony plates with keratin sheets and are called osteoderms.
Excellent. All right.
This is your dinosaur knowledge for today. Thanks, Günther.
Thank you. And by the way, I'm going to do something. I'm going to post Günther's information in the chat, and go check out his stuff. His dinosaurs are. Have you ever seen BBC documentaries with dinosaurs? That's the quality that Günther provides. Okay, so for the final few minutes of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one that has the selections. I'm going to delete the UV tag, and I'm going to delete the seams tag. And let's assume that we've made our selections and we want to go and do something. A very quick overview of what you could do. So let's start with clicking on the gear icon here. Make sure this is view, and let's apply a frontal projection and get our little dinosaur. So now we have the UVs and so forth. Oh, by the way, we have the same shading display functions we have for the viewport here as well. So yeah, just go ahead and play around with this. Everything is compatible. And we have some predefined, the colored grid and a checkerboard if you wish to do that, to check your UVs. Okay, so go to polygon mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, so this is the body and these are the plates. As I told you, the only thing you need to do when you select islands is just say mark a seam, and it will mark the outlines, okay? And the same thing for the toenails. So mark as seams, and the same thing for the back. Gunter, please tell me what tail spikes. I actually Googled it yesterday. I wanted to be faithful to the thing. All right, the inside of the mouth, and mark as seam. And what is the last thing? The tongue, right? Mark as seam. So providing you did your selections, it took literally a few seconds to do all this. And now what I can do is just click on this button here, and it will give me the first unwrap. Of course, it's incomplete because I haven't split my beautiful dinosaur in half. I haven't done that. So I can go here, and if you want to make your seams into edge selections, you can go to the seam tag and you can select. You can select them all, and or double click. Yeah, you can double click. The good thing with that is then you can use the loop selection, all sorts of stop at seams and so forth. So I'm going to cut this dinosaur in half. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to mark that as seam, and maybe press this button one more time here and see what happens. Good, that's that part. Let's go and remove the head. So I'm going to click on this, and then let's click on this and add that as seam. Can I add? Oh, I didn't know that. No, you can't. You have to go here and mark as seam. And let's go and do this one more time. So slowly you can see that I'm getting a better unwrap here. And yeah, the other thing is go and cut the legs. So in this particular case, we could go and we can use symmetrize as well. So I'm going to go and select two of the legs, and then I can go and say symmetrize selection, and then right click and say mark as seams, and then click again on this button, and we're going to get the legs. So as you can see, the more we are optimizing this, the dinosaur starts, the actual UV starts looking good. So let's assume that I'm okay with how this is unwrapping, and this is going to be the final point before I give the floor back to Jonas. And let's go and select this island. Let's go to move to and double click here to select it. And let's find an edge that may be nice and vertical. See, the spine is not straight, so maybe I just need to eyeball it. And here is another improvement. We have an axis. We have our proper axes, rotation axes that works properly. If anyone was a fan of the previous gizmo, I have to give you my condolences. It doesn't exist anymore. And there is, the design team is working on a potential replacement, maybe something better. But for the time being, you don't have that thing. I shall not miss it. Okay. And, oh yeah, I remembered now why my dinosaur is not doing exactly what I want him to do, because I need two more cuts over here. There we go. And I like that. And I'm going to say and mark as seams. And then I'm just going to select, I've got this selected, press on this, and there you go. Look at that. Look how nice and neat this is. And you'll just continue with everything else in the same manner. And yeah, last thing. Did I say last thing before, Jonas? I think I said it, didn't I? So
You
what
did.
I'm going to do here is I'm going to approximately rotate it the way I want. I'm going to go and select one edge, which I feel is somewhat in the center. Then I'm going to go to my move tool and my edge, and I'm going to double click to select this edge, and I'm going to straighten it. No, this is a straighten tool. And then I don't need to go to points. I can right click and add UV pins to the edges. Of course, I can do that. And now, because these are pinned, I may be able to unwrap this and it will look symmetrical. That's because everything now is in place. It may not be perfectly symmetrical, but it's good enough to do what we want it to do. And what you can do with this, if you want to draw on one side, it's one of the ways to do it. You can clear the UV pins. Let's go and detach these. It's a bit too much. Let's go here and add one more 0 here, enter, and there you go. And this is the last thing. Polygon selection, double click, right click, and we have the mirror commands, mirror V, mirror U, and you can see that they are very close to each other. And I'm not sure, but I'm going to try this. I've selected both these, and all right, it's one of those things where I shouldn't do without testing. And I'll be darned. Look at that. Although they are slightly different, it actually managed to place them in a way where if you do 3D painting, it's going to comply and work pretty nicely. But they have to be quite similar. Anyway, this was just an intro to get your appetites wet about the new UV editor, how streamlined it is, and the enormous amount of work done. Because people are going to ask me, if you want to be able to see the background in your 3D viewport, make sure you select the UV tag. If it's not selected, it will show you the default viewport. You have to select the object and the UV tag so that it picks up the colors, and then you can come here and you can see all the cool stuff. Anyhow, yeah, make sure you prepare questions. I think next week we have an Ask the Trainer, and I would love to hear from everyone. Yeah, I'll take care of the chat now while
There's
Jonas is doing it.
one question here. So I've got pretty much everything covered until here. There's one question here. So Joel is wondering, I haven't done UVs in Cinema 4D for a while. How would you create UDIMs?
You can't. Yeah, we can't
just
create
because it's super easy.
No, but we don't create UDIMs.
Yeah,
we import UDIMs. Do you have? I have something ready if you want.
Well, yeah, maybe just show that.
If you open a texture, I'm just going to go and load a very quick UDIM. Give me a second. We are I've got a very specific folder, UDIMs.
Well,
and
but
UDIMs.
The point is that you can also, if you move a UV island just to the side of the main.
Yeah. I'm going to show that.
This will create the new UDIM, and the UDIM workflow is supported.
I have the images here, which are named based on UDIM. I select one and I open. It's going to ask me one or more UDIM tokens was detected. And you say, do you want just the image or this? If I do this and I press OK, it's going to load all the images based on their UDIM tile naming, on their UDIM or what's that called? UV tile. And there you go. Now, if you're wondering, the red indicates UDIM numbers that are not supported. And that is not a Cinema 4D limitation. That is how UDIMs work. But as Jonas said, even if you have an empty canvas here, the moment you drag any one of these here, immediately you have that UDIM enabled. And yeah, that's there are a few things in here that talk about UDIMs, which tile to start, which tiles you can go to, and so forth. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff we're going to visit when it comes to tutorials. But those are the ways. The UDIMs are always active. That's the point of this. You don't even require UVs. This is an empty UV. Let's remove the object. Let's remove everything. This is now your UV editor. The only thing that may be strange is that the default tile is red, but it doesn't mean it's invalid. It's just one of those things. Okay, that's all I have to say.
All right. So our good friend Rodolfo said, give us 3 more last things, but I think he said that before we showed 3 more things. So we actually have more things to show. Do you quickly want to go?
Yeah.
Mention the particle.
I'm just going to show it. There's no. I'm not going to do any analysis on this. So new scene. Anyone that uses custom particle properties in the simulation particles over here, remember we had the big panels that said all the particle properties. Now we have a particle property manager. And the great thing about this, there's been a lot of work put into this, thanks to some great developers we have. And you can actually see where each of the properties is also used. So if you do have custom properties, it will appear here what is outputting into it, what is reading from it, what is modified, and so forth. If you do open some of your files, the one thing that a little niggle which you have to overcome, it's going to be fixed soon, is that when you switch projects with the manager open, the properties won't update. You have to close this and open it up again. Unfortunately, this wasn't caught in time, but it doesn't break anything. So just keep that in mind. And the moment you create a basic emitter, immediately this got activated. Particle group is a property. If you go and you add custom properties, immediately it will be added here, and you can see who is using it. So if I deselect this and go here, I can go and select the entity that's using it. So it becomes a really, really helpful tool for you to be able to know where everything is, where the particles are modifying properties, which entity is creating the properties, and so forth. Again, just give us some time and we will provide you with more information on this. But those are the 2 things I wanted to cover for today only.
And there we go. We're 40 minutes in, which is perfect. So yeah, let me just remove your screen and add mine here. So there are more exciting stuff that we added with this release. And what I want to show you are 3 additions to the MoGraph cloner. Remember a couple of releases ago, we added advanced distributions. And with this release, we have 3 more advanced distributions for MoGraph. So what I want to show you here are these 3. It's a new edge distribution, a Rivet distribution, and a UV projection distribution. And yeah, let's just go through these. And I prepared this little head. It's just like the generic head bust from the asset browser in a remesh, and I added like a little bit of a randomness here. And yeah, so let me just add a sphere. This is what I want to clone onto this mesh. So as always, I just create a cloner, hold down the Alt key so that it's being added as a parent. And then here under distribution type, I go to advanced, click advanced, and then here we can browse the advanced distributions. The new ones are edge, as I said, Rivet, and UV projection. So let's start with edge. So here we have our edge distribution, similar to the ones that I showed a couple of releases ago. Whenever you create a distribution that needs a mesh input, then mesh input needs to be a child of the distribution. So now you can already see that it's doing something, right? So it's cloning onto the edges. And here you can see the parameters, right? So we've got parameters to define the edge distribution and parameters for the color, which I will go dive into in a second. So the first one, we can iterate or use random clones here. Let me just show you this by adding a platonic here and just add that to the cloner as well. So similar to the cloner, we can iterate between the two so that they are basically sphere, platonic, or we can just set these up to be random. And then we can pre-rotate these. This will make more sense in the other scene that I'm going to show you. But this is what you do for like the initial which clone is showing up where part. Okay, and then we can clone based on a couple of things, right? So here you can see the count, for example. We can create more clones, less clones, and this is always per edge. So basically, you can already see this is something that wasn't possible before using just one edge distribution. There were options to make it work, right? But these needed more rigging and so on. So we have a pinch, so we can pinch these in, for example. We can create gaps between them, and the great thing is that these gaps will be like always the value that we put in here. And now this is where it's getting really interesting. Center bias, we can make it so that the ones in the center are either bigger or smaller, right? And the opposite thing will happen to the ones that are on the more closer towards the vertices. Same thing with start and end, so we can bias the whole thing towards one side or the other. And yeah, of course, we can add randomness as well. And you can see this is one of those great advantages of the advanced distributions. They are aware of the scale of the clones, right? So they will just do the right thing. Again, if I create a gap now, it will just do the right thing here. Okay, so another thing that I like here is that we have an animation speed parameter. So if I press play now, you can see that these are animated already. And yeah, a couple more things here. We've got a surface offset. By default, it's set to object. So if I set it to 100%, you can see that all these clones are now on the surface. They're sitting exactly on the surface. I can also put them inside if I type in -100 in case you need the surface to be exactly what you had in your model, or you just keep them at 0 so that they are centered. Yeah, we have a scaling axis. Uniform is the default. If we set this to direction and maybe make the sphere a little smaller, you can see that these clones are only scaling in this direction here. So yeah, there are a couple of great things that we can do here. Also down here, we can define selections. We can define the random seed. Yeah, and then here we have color options, right? We can go with constant color. We can go with linear color, right? Where we go where it's using this gradient and going from one side to the other, or we can create random colors based on this gradient. What I really like about the linear one is that if you go to the edges page here and just bring down the randomness, and maybe let's play with the bias here and maybe add some some more here. So what you can do, for example, is you can make this a little smaller and then copy it over and right-click, invert selected knots, and do something like this, for example. Right, and then you can see that the colors are different towards the center, and in this case, this is in line with the variation in scale. So there's a lot of cool things that we can do with that. I prepared another scene here, which I think is looking quite cool if you render it. This is basically it. The rendering didn't start yet, but here we go. So here we have the edge distribution. You can see there are gaps and so on. I also cloned something onto the points, and I then added like an offsetted mesh to add more detail here. So yeah, another addition, which is pretty cool. So the next one I want to show, or are there any questions on the chat regarding the edge distribution?
Nope. It's just
cool.
Smiles and people happy.
That's perfect, because a smile is exactly what I had on my face when I was trying this. It's a lot of fun, and it's cool that you can now do these things. So I'm going to start with a new scene here, and I'm just going to create a cube, right? I'm also going to create a screw. So let me create a screw from here, and I'm just going to use one of those machine screws. And I want to clone it. I want to clone the screw onto the cube, but in a very specific way. So I'm going to choose an advanced distribution. I'm going to hit the browse button, and then here I'm going to choose the Rivet distribution. So this is also something that required like pretty serious rigging before, and now it's just this really, it's a very case specific solution that we created here, but also something that you need quite often. So it's basically, think of it as a virtual nail gun. And what you can do here is you just add the cube to the Rivet distribution, and now you can already see that it created clones of the screws here along the edges here of the polygons. So let me just show the edges as well, or the lines. So here you can see it better now. Okay, we have a couple of things that we need to adjust, right? In the Rivet distribution, let me go to the pre-rotate. In this case, I think we need to go with -90. So now they are going inside here. And now we can have a look at a couple of things, right? We can play with the offset, for example. So we can define where this line is supposed to be, right? We have two different types of clones here. One are the corner clones, and the other ones, the smaller ones here, are the interconnect clones. So one thing we can do here as well is add some subdivisions, for example. So now you can see that you can even create those rings of lines, so to speak. Okay, good. So what will happen if I, let's say, create a 2 by 2 by 2? Here we go. So this is where you can see that it's based on the polygons. So it will create this these rivets or these screws here, like around every polygon. So let's have another look here. There are a couple of things that I actually want to adjust. You can see that we have a selection thing here, so we can actually reduce or make them only show up on selected polygons. What I want to do is I want to create a procedural variation of this cube where you can actually see those plates, so to speak. And I'm going to do that by, wait, I just think I created a wrong name here. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to show you that using modifiers. So I'm going to use the Shift C, which is the commander. So I'm going to bring this up. This is the commander, and I'm going to start by storing a selection. So store selection. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I'm creating it. So I want to store a selection, a polygon selection. I'm going to call it init, and then I want to select all polygons here, right? So I'm going to do that first, because now after that, I'm going to add a polygon bevel, and I want to restrict the screws only to the top faces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the let's just go with the bevel. Here we go, bevel. I'm going to add that here, and I'm going to make it so that it's a polygon bevel, and we need 1 and 1, maybe like so. And I think that's already doing what I want. Does it? No, it does not. We need to uncheck preserve groups, and now it's doing what I want. So now you can see these little gaps here, and this is completely procedural, meaning that if I add more subdivisions, right, it will also add these lines here. So this is a procedural setup now. It's like I modeled procedurally in this case. Okay, but now the rivets are also here on the side. This is because they are being applied to these 45-degree angle areas, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do in the rivet distribution, I'm just going to use the selection in here. You can just drag and drop that in here, right? And now I'm only adding my screws here to these parts that are like planar on top, like the original ones. Okay, so next one that I want to show you here is when I go down to the surface offset. Of course, again, we have an absolute mode where we can offset all screws based on centimeters, or I go with object. And this is the better option for this case because we scaled the screws. So if I want to bring them in so that they are, in the way that real screws would be like, this would do the exact same thing to both screw types or screw sizes, which is really great. So yeah, we have that now. Now let's go into more options here. So you can see we have a spin for the corners. We have more options here for the interconnect. So we can set these based on step or count. So let's say I add a couple of more subdivisions here to my cube, then you can see it better. If I set it to count, we now have 5 screws in between all corner screws. Or I can set it up to step, where I have a distance, and I can, so it will be as close to that distance as possible. And therefore, you can create a pretty homogeneous distribution here. Okay, so let me adjust this a little bit, like so. Yeah, of course, we can pinch this as well. We can adjust the scale of these intermediate or interconnect ones, and we can spin them as well. But what I really like is down here, the jitter, the spin jitter. We can jitter position, we can jitter spin. So if I do that, and I go with 360, every screw will have like a random, its own random rotation, its own random spin, right? So from here, what I would like to do is, let's say we have a situation where you're requested to create an animation where the screws are coming in, right? Then what you would do here is actually you would create an effector, of course, right? So this is just a distribution similar to the distributions that we always had. And now I'm going to add a plane effector. And in the parameters, let's say I want this plane effector to start at, let's say, 30 centimeters up. And then I'm going to adjust the heading here. Let's go with, let's say, 1440, something like that. And I also want to reduce the scale here to -1 so that they start at nothing. And then I'm going to add a field and rotate that in a little bit and make it smaller or shorter. And now if let me just move it up a little bit so that we are closer to this position, right? So now I can bring them in, and here, especially with the big ones, you can see that they are also rotating in, right? So this can be done as well, right? And one thing that I like using this for as well, this whole setup, is actually if you need to like create a, let's say, a science fiction-y room, like a spaceship thing where you have walls that are made of plates and so on. You can do that pretty easily with the same setup here. And I'm just going to delete the plane effector for now. The only difference is that we need to be inside this cube. So let me make this cube a little bigger. Let's say we have a spaceship that is like 3 meters high, but then there is like a control room which is 10 by 10 meters, something like this, right? And we need to be in that room. We need to be inside, like so. And now you can see that all the screws are turning inwards, right? I want to use this cube, but I want to still keep it procedural. So basically what we need is we need to flip the normals here. And if you bring up the commander and type in normals, you can reverse the normals using a modifier here. This is not new. This was possible before, but we can just place that here as the first one. And now the first thing that happens is it's reversing the normals, and then it will just invert the whole effect. And now what we can do is, let me just set up the screws to be multi-instances. And then in the cube, we can just bring up the segments of these wall elements to, let's say, 10 by 2 by 10, right? And suddenly I have this, and this is completely procedural. Just to give you some inspiration of what you can do with this.
Can we get on to some of the questions as well? There's some very interesting questions in the...
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
Let's just do one or two, because
okay, show it. Show what you have to show, and then we can go to questions.
Okay, so I have created another scene here. I'll just give it a second to load. Yeah, it's already here. So what you will see here, if I start the rendering of this one, is that if you watch closely, you can see that the screws here, they are like a little bit inside, as if you would have pre-drilled the holes and yeah, then also really made it so that the screw is like a little lower than the surface level. So what I did there was basically I booled out holes from the original surface, and this way I was able to use the same distribution, but then make this a little more realistic. So this would be, if you want to go for more realism and you need a close-up, for example, of something, this is a good way to do that. Let me just quickly deactivate the bouquet and maybe zoom in here so that you can see what's happening. So you can actually see that it's going in. And yeah, if I bring up the count of screws here. Again, everything is based on the same distribution. It just takes a quick moment. So now this is the updated one. You can see that also the holes got adjusted because it's all based on the same distribution. All right, it's a very specific use case, but if you have this use case, this distribution is saving you a ton of headache and, even more importantly, a ton of time. So are there any specific questions about the Rivet distribution?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's do them now.
One is if it works with n-gons, which the answer is yes. You just create an n-gon, you make it a selection, and it works. I have one right in front of me right now.
Okay.
Very quickly, just to show, here it is. So you just make a selection of the n-gon, and you just feed it in the polygon selection. That's it. And this is how it works. The second question, similar to this, by Vedat, is how can this be helpful for distributing stitches on a seat of a car? You could use some sort of secondary geometry that creates an n-gon for where you want the stitches to go, because when you make something an n-gon, as you can see here, it kind of, it gets a bit dodgy if it's not one plane. But yeah, you can definitely do that.
I would go with another approach for that. Because
I'm showing your screen. There you go.
Yeah, because Rivet distribution is based on the polygons. You can have n-gons, of course, but if you are talking about stitching like a chair or like any sort of fabric or a pillow or whatever, these are very organic shapes, right? They are all like a little bit puffy and so on. So you would go another way. What I would suggest for that kind of workflow, or for that kind of use case, is a workflow that is based on, let's say you create an edge selection and you create a spline from that edge selection, and then you would clone stitches onto this edge selection, and yeah, something like that.
Yeah, cloner. Put it here. You go and you say cloner object mode. The object, you have to drag your object here, go to distribution edge, and in the edge, you throw your edge selection. There you go. So this one is the inner, the other one is the other one. The only problem with this is that unless I'm mistaken, you can put only one clone per edge. No, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I would really go with I just had this case when I was training a customer.
Spline.
And we used a spline for it, and the result was pretty good then. Because the spline then also allows you, if the mesh is dense enough, to actually like create a little weight map around it and use that weight map to like cave in around the actual stitches, which was quite neat, and actually showed the interaction between the yeah, basically the string and the pillow, which was very good. But we're digressing a little bit here. Let's get back to topic. And do you mind sharing my screen?
Yes, I will.
Please.
Share your screen.
All right. So the last distribution I want to show is one that is also like a pretty specific use case, but it's very cool for all motion designers and for people who want to clone based on the UVs, right? So we have this new distribution, which is called the UV projection distribution. And again, I'm going to make this plane here a child of this UV projection distribution. And basically, what's happening is that pretty much every object has UVs. Our primitives have UVs. Some of them really have absolutely clean UVs. For example, the plane. If I make this plane editable and shift double click the UV tag, you can see that our UVs are actually this grid. And this is the perfect scenario actually, because now I can use this UV space to do cool things. So let me just quickly undo so that it's a primitive. And yeah, we can adjust the count, we can adjust the length of this, we can adjust the offset. And here you can see that it's starting to get interesting, where it's going from one side to the other. And this works, of course, in both directions. And where it's getting even more interesting is down here where it says animation. And there are two modes. There is deterministic mode and dependent mode. Dependent is more like a simulation where it's doing stuff based on the state of the previous frame, basically. And deterministic will always give you like a really exact, the exact result, which is 100% reproducible. And both these modes have different parameters. So here in dependent, let me add some wind, for example. And now you can see that it's starting to move. And I can add turbulence, for example. I can add variance. I can adjust the noise speed and do all sorts of things. I can add speed variation. And the great thing is, right now, this is on a plane, and the plane is actually exactly what the UVs are here. But when you, let's say, add another object, like a torus also has like a very perfect UV set. And let's just add this on the torus. And now you can see that based on the UVs, this is animating, right? So as I said, there are these two modes. This distribution is having a look at where in the UV space is a clone and then projecting that position back onto the 3D object. And this allows really to create really cool stuff. So play with these parameters. We again have the surface offset, what you saw before. We have loop edges. So let me just bring back the plane here again. So if you have loop edges enabled, you can see that it's going from one side to the other. If you disable that, right, you won't have that. Right, but I really like that. It's a really cool thing to have. Okay, so there's this other mode, which is deterministic. And here, let me just see. Let me just bring down these parameters here. What we have, if I go to my last frame, let me just see. Speed V has already been set up. If I just put that here and that one here, right? If I go to the first frame, I have this. And if I directly jump to the last frame, I'm back here. This is why it's deterministic. It's exactly the same thing. We can add variation here, and you see that right away. We can add turbulence as well, and a variation. So pretty cool things are possible with this. Let me give you an example. So I'm going to go back to the torus, because this is where you can see things better than, or where you can actually see what's possible. So I'm going to bring down the speed variation, and we're also going to only add speed V. And now you can see that we are actually moving. Let me just bring down the other parameters here. We're actually moving around like the circle shape of the like around the diameter, around the profile, like so. So what can we do with this? So for example, we could now from here say, okay, I want these clones to be bigger. Let's say I want these to be, let me just go with 40 by 40 or something. I want these to be bigger, so I'm going to scale them up, right? And I'm also going to add a rigid body tag here. And let's say we want to add follow position as well, something like that. And suddenly we have an animation like this, right? And we can, of course, also rotate it. We can also, and this is also pretty cool, we can also now, for example, trace these paths. So let's add a tracer. So now we have these. So if you want to create something along a surface, especially when the UVs are perfect, this is a great way of doing that. So let me delete the tag, and let me also show you, for example, the random start distribution, and then we add more turbulence and do all sorts of stuff here. And you can see that we are actually creating splines around that surface. And since I saw the comment, throwing that into a volume builder looks awesome. All right, let me just quickly see what else I wanted to show. There we go. All right, so another thing that I did here was I added it to an object that doesn't have perfect UVs. So in this case, let me just go to the head here. So these are the UVs here. So first, you can see that they're only here in the top left. What's really good about these UVs is that you can clearly see the face here, and that we clearly have a top to bottom direction and a left to right direction. And what this allows us to do, for example, is to create stuff like a lot of sweat or rain, something like that. The more advanced setup would be using a particle setup with a node modifier. But if you need like a quick solution for water running down a head, for example, this is a good one. And the great thing is that if I grab the head controller here, so this will even follow, right? So this is another cool use case for that. All right, there are a ton of things that you can do with that. It's, again, a pretty, it's a distribution that you need to wrap your head around. And one thing, and that is a word of caution here. So one thing you need to be aware of is that we create clones, and whenever they are leaving a UV island, something is still happening to them. And this means that they are not disappearing, which also means that if you are using a tracer, the tracer will create connections between the last position of the clone that was visible on the piece of geometry, and the first one when it's coming back, pretty much. So, and this leads to these little streaks here that you can see here. But there are ways where you can sometimes reduce this effect. If you go in here and you go down here to the strays, the default is, I think, skip. If you set it to origin, it will use the position of the cloner as the center point, so to speak. And if you place that wisely, you can reduce that effect. Just be aware of that. It can be a quick and poor solution for these kinds of scenarios, but it has limitations for that. Yeah, but if you don't need the tracer, for example, right, this would work as well. So yeah, This is basically what I wanted to show. So I just showed you 3 new advanced distributions: edge distribution, Rivet distribution, and UV projection distribution. You also saw that we have a new workflow for UV unwrapping. You saw the new manager for custom attributes and custom attributes for particles, I mean. But I think I now skipped the part where you would ask me the questions that are in the chat, right?
Oh yeah, there are no more questions. That was basically it about the stitches and stuff like that.
Okay.
Let's see. There's so Siamak, can we use a UV for UV projection and another UV set for textures, for instance, on the same mesh? You can have as many UV tags as you want. The projection.
That's a good question. So there is no way of picking the UV projection. So I would assume, I haven't tested it though, that it's using the last one in the row. So the one that is on the right in the on the text. So if you have multiple, I believe it would take the rightmost one.
Yeah, or the first one.
But I'm guessing here, so I don't know. I haven't tested that.
I want to reply to this. You can still use body paint. That's not, and you can even paint in 2D in the new UV editor. The problem is that we don't directly support Redshift materials and that it's a bit finicky. But it doesn't mean that you cannot paint in on a texture using 3D painting. You can go to the paint layout and you can actually do that. We are running a bit late, and as far as I know, in Germany, it's even later than what it is here. But
yes,
you know, you can find me on all the appropriate channels, or the Ask the Trainer questions, or on social media, or on the Discords, and yeah, maybe I do show next week a bit of simple 3D painting in body paint. Again, it may not be the most glamorous experience, but for creating your textures, for painting on a bitmap using the 3D viewport, you can actually do that. So yeah, that's and then load that texture, because we can save. Cinema 4D has a mini Photoshop built in. We have layers, we can add layers, we can subtract layers, we can do all sorts of effects. So then you can just load that as a texture in Redshift and use it. Okay,
so let me just do some housekeeping at the end. So I just posted a link here in the chat for Cineversity. Go visit Cineversity if you are new to Maxon, or if you want to learn a new Maxon software, or if you want to improve your knowledge, because we have a ton of tutorials on here. The first thing you will see here is our Getting Started series. Be aware that there is an arrow here, so there is more than just 4. So yeah, there are plenty of tutorials to watch. Also, if you haven't checked out Autograph yet, please do so. And then I also wanted to point you to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, where we streamed this one here, and this is also where you find previous streams created with Maxon, where we're going through workflows. There are tutorials on here, quick tips, and so on. Definitely check out the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel as well. All right, and with that, I think we're going to close. And I wish you all a great rest of the day, and see you next time. Thank you for watching.
Likewise, thank you very much, Jonas, for hosting this. Enjoy, download the new version, enjoy it, and come back to me with questions next week.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Ciao, ciao.